Turned Out for Walt asks, if Amsa can win the big house, can I win her back? Which, you know, it is what it is. I will say I really do like this particular image. That's Mikey. He runs Smash tournaments over at Beyond the Summit. Good for him. Good for them. And Walt, you know, I'm sure things will work out as they do. As they did for Amsa, and as they do. My old friend Dazarin from the Pacific Northwest asks, your thoughts on the current state and trajectory of Spacey players, both Fox and Falco, respectively, in the context of the current meta from mid-high level perspective. I think Fox can only go up in the sense that, so here's the thing, right? Like Fox, well, only go up. What does that mean, only go up? He's already at the top. The thing about Fox is, for a couple years, everyone basically was like, well, Fox is the shit, but Marth. Cody is actually just beating Zayn now. Cody beat Zayn like the last 3 times? Cody's been beating Zayn. So from my perspective, we're reaching a point with Fox where maybe you now have an argument that Fox doesn't have any bad matchups. And don't get me wrong, I'm not just saying this from a matchup point of view. I also think from a playstyle point of view, I think there are still many things Fox players can do to improve. I don't think anyone, for example, is doing Mango's running shines besides Mango. Like his usage of running shine, both on offense and in neutral to approach, is something that nobody is doing. Nobody's doing. Mango does this very like short dash to get into the run and get the running shine. And he uses it to tech chase, which no one else is doing. He uses it to kind of win scrambles, to call people's dashbacks, to chase people's wave dashes out of shield. And no one is really doing running shines the way Mango is. Mango's doing it like 15, 16 times a game, it feels like. You know, he's doing it so much. And he's ending people with it. And you can watch his YouTube clips. And I'm shocked that none of the other top Foxes have really kind of latched on with the way that he has. Cody, if anything, he's pushing his own playstyle in a lot of different directions. He's a lot less full hoppy than he used to be. I think Fox still has so much variety and diversity in how you can play the character that as people start to flesh that out more and more and more and more, as the top players steal things from each other, I think Fox actually could get quote unquote better. And when I say better, I mean obviously Fox is already literally top tier. It's just that maybe Fox actually does beat Marth. I don't know. I think it's a pretty even matchup. You know, Mango comes up. Mango says it. Mango's like, hey, Fox might beat Marth. So, and then it's in terms of Falco, I think Falco's doing well too. You've actually got, for the first time, basically, as of about a year or two ago, people are actually switching to Falco, right? Fiction, Kalindi, like people are actually switching to that character, which is something that for a long time, people were only switching away from Falco. So I think Falco's on the up and up as well. It's just kind of funny for both these characters recently because it feels like there's less rep at the top level than there used to be because there's just like 2 Foxes in the top 10, unless you count like Mango's Fox, Plum's Fox. But it feels like there's less Fox in top 8s, but I mean, I definitely don't think that really means anything. And of course, there's always going to be, you know, there's players like Sunsei, there's players like Moki who are knocking on that door. SFAT's always right there. So I think it's a good time to be a Fox man. And the best part is, if you're trying to pick up Spaceys, or if you're trying to learn melee and you're trying to be a Space Animal player, the best part is, because there's less rep at the top level, like the top 8 level, maybe you can get away with people not calling you cookie cutter. Caden at home asks, how does an aspiring commentator reach TOEF level? How does anyone gain notoriety in this scene without it being directly tied to skill? Well, I would just say for an aspiring commentator, it's a really weird question because like simultaneously it's really hard and really easy. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, there's only really 7 or 8 like top commentators that are at every event. And I feel like if you had some gimmick and you put yourself out there and you, I don't know, made a couple like YouTube videos or like think about ETOS, right? ETOS literally made a bunch of maps and then annoyingly DM'd every top player. I love ETOS, by the way. I'm just kidding. ETOS, I love you, man. Annoyingly DM'd every top player and top content creator, was like,
hey, look at my maps on stream. Look at these. I have lots of data that I can pop.
Right, and kind of made the JMUG shirts and did all these crazy, you know, things, and also was just a pretty swell dude. And kind of overnight, you know, kind of became this pretty recognizable figure, at least at the, you know, at the second tier, whatever, of melee personalities, right? You got Tylenol Addict that makes really fucking dope combo videos, right? There's a lot of ways to like kind of do something unique, and I feel like if you were trying to become like a top commentator, like, I mean, the generic answer is you commentate your locals or netplay locals or whatever, and then you get a commentary reel from there. Like, you know, there will just come a point where majors need commentators. This happens all the time. Majors always need commentators, right? Stelios has put himself out there, and Stelios is definitely going to be someone who's probably a pretty recognizable figure. Yeah, you know, you could even do the podcast angle or something. I mean, I just feel like there's a lot of ways to kind of growth hack it, in that sense. When I say growth hack, I mean like do something gimmicky. And I don't mean gimmick in a negative sense. I literally just mean do something out there that no one else is doing. Put yourself out there, get your name out there, and then people, you know, will notice. And I think as a commentator, you know, there's certainly niches that I think aren't being filled right now. I would love to see more like diversity in terms of the commentators we have, because I think when I tune into, for example, some random fucking locals or like Melbourne locals with fucking Bundun, or like SPM Dad, who's I would love to see it like every major. There's a lot of amazing commentators out there that I wish were at more things, and I feel like, you know, there's a lot of them that are on that cusp. Do you think the balance of this game is underrated, with more mid-tiers getting good results? I do think the balance of this game is underrated. I think Melee is quite well balanced. I think there are definitely dog characters. There are definitely unviable characters. But the thing is, even if it's not a fully viable cast, I think the meta is very healthy. It's like Melee's got a really healthy meta. I think Melee has far and away, Melee has enough characters that you've got variety. I think there's also playstyle variety, which is even, to me, even more important than characters. And yeah, I do think the balance is actually underrated, because, you know, people say like you'll never win a major with fucking Roy. But I'm like, yeah, but you don't, and this is something I always say on Radio Melee when people call in and ask about this sort of thing. You don't need to win a major to feel like you did something. You know what I mean? Like Triple R was playing Kirby, and Triple R gained an insane amount of notoriety. Like Triple R would sauce your favorite up and coming top 100 players. You know, Curb would sauce your favorite up and coming top 100 players with Game & Watch. To me, you don't need to be literally at the skill tier where you're winning majors for me to feel like you're doing something. And I will say, I was in SQ's chat a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about healthy metas and healthy fighting games that had healthy balance. And something that comes up a lot is when you get in a lot of these fighting games that have extremely balanced character rosters all the way down, what ends up happening is you end up getting a lot of top players who say, man, I wish this game was a little bit less well balanced. Some of these really gimmicky, you know, toxic gameplay characters, I wish they were a little worse. This is something that comes up a lot from a lot of top players. Usually it's the spectators that say, well, I want every character to be viable. But usually if you ask the top players of any given game, usually they don't want that. That's actually really common. All Guilty Gear Strive, right? That is like not that uncommon to hear. That is actually not that uncommon of a sentiment amongst top players, or even just competitors in general. I kind of like that in Melee, the gimmicky characters are generally a little bit worse, and you can still succeed with them. But you know, they're gonna have a harder time. And I like that there's, you know, I like that I go on unranked and there are more fucking spacies and top players or top characters, right? I just feel like it's cool that the most, and there's something really beautiful about how in Melee it's the top tiers that are the easiest to combo. So the mid tiers, Samus and Luigi and Pikachu and Yoshi are all really hard to combo, and they're tanky. And then it's the top tiers that you're gonna see the best results in theory if you practice, but on the flip side, you're a glass cannon, right? Fox, Falco, Falcon, Marth, even Sheik, even Jigglypuff in Jigglypuff's own way. They're all glass cannons. And I always thought that was really cool. And that gives, that kind of yields a nice like second level balance that happens where if you're fighting a Luigi or something, you know, you're not fighting the hardest to beat character in the game because in theory they're a mid tier, but then on the flip side, they have the benefit of being tankier, they can take more hits, so they're gonna test you in other ways. And I always thought that was cool about Melee, and it really isn't that way with every fighting game. I think that was, by and large, kind of a happy accident. But surprise, surprise, fall speed, you know, makes you easier to combo, but fall speed also makes you harder hitting and better neutral. So it kind of makes sense. What is the worst character that a sufficiently skilled player could win a super major with? Yeah, like alternate. So I like that they clarified like alternate universe, like literally. So like they're saying not even with the current cast of Melee players. They're saying like in theory. Yeah, the basement tier list is not. Leffen could not do it with Mewtwo. I would say Dr. Mario is a good answer. Maybe Luigi. It's Luigi or Dog. To me, it's Luigi or Dog. And I will say Samus is up there too. I think Samus could do it. I think there's a world where Samus could do it. I think Plup could do it. But the thing you got to remember is anytime, think about the way AMSA won Big House. Through winners, fighting HBox and Mango. That's the way it needs. If the second you go to losers, you're done. So I'm imagining Plup somehow gets Cody. Cody plays bad against Samus somehow. And then in Grands gets like, you know what I mean? You need some little miracles. You definitely need the right bracket because there's certain people that it's over. It's completely over. But you know, Duck 3-0'd fucking HBox with Samus that one time. Lost the second set, but Duck did get that win. So it's possible. I think it's possible. I just don't think it's likely. How quirked up am I? Could I bust it down sexual style on the big stage? Is being white holding me back? Ringler's pretty quirked up, I will say. I think Ringler is up there in terms of quirked up. In fact, if you said, name some quirked up Melee players, if you just said that, I would probably think for a little bit and I would say Ringler. Could I bust down sexual style on the big stage? No. And the reason for that is at most majors, you know, you'll probably get escorted out by security. I'm just imagining Genesis, and I think Bobak runs a tight ship. I think that one's going to be hard to pull off. Is being white holding me back? I just couldn't imagine Ringler being any other ethnicity. I'm trying to imagine like an Asian Ringler. I could imagine an Asian Ringler. I've seen some funny Chinese TikTok dudes, and they got some funny Chinese TikTok dudes. I've actually seen some Chinese TikTok dudes, now that I'm really envisioning it, that I feel like could be like an Asian version of Ringler. Sure. Do you feel like our storylines and interest is too vested in the old guard? HBox and Mango being the biggest names in Melee, still a good thing? I think about this all the time. All the time. It's good that they're around. I see the need to diversify, because if Mango ever retires, you know, does that fuck Melee over? I don't want that to fuck Melee over. I want people like Zane and Cody and J-Mook to have their own fan bases so they can carry the torch of the commoner's interest. You know what I'm saying? Like, I agree. I agree, but ultimately, Mango and HBox, them being around is a good thing. They're doing a good thing by being around. And Mango knows it. Mango talks about it all the time. I think he definitely very much feels this aspect of, he feels like he's carrying the community on his shoulders. I do, to a certain degree, feel that, and I appreciate that they're around for us and that they frequently use the opportunities that they have to hype up Melee. But yeah, if you stick around, you'll become a fan of a lot of players. I agree. I think that the whole HBox Mango, you know, and Leffen, etc., I think that's largely just, you know, the Twitch, the stream monsters, you know, the people that aren't watching anything besides, let's say, Genesis and Big House, right? Like, it's the people that, because there's lots of people that will only tune in to Super Major top 8s. You know, they're not watching Melee streams all the time, but they you know, they tune in when there's something happening. And I feel like for those people, it's nice having some old name to kind of latch onto. Yeah, I agree that if you're more invested in the community, if you actually play, then, you know, probably you end up being a fan of whoever you're a fan of. You know what I'm saying? That's an interesting question. It's like, what are the thoughts on the different the amounts? But I think that really they mean numbers, but literally how many people are commentating at any given time. What are your thoughts on that? I think 2 people is best, generally. I think 4 people is pretty good. It's a different vibe. 4 people, it's like a conversation. It's almost like you're just shooting the shit and there's a match going on. And that's cool. And I think that the people who have been at Smash Summit for long enough, we make it work, and we've gotten pretty used to it, and it's pretty cool, you know. But I've never personally felt like my best commentary happens at Smash Summit. Tricasts suck. I hate 3 people. I hate 3 people. 3 people is the fucking worst. I hate commentating with 3 people because you never know whose fucking turn it is. 3 is always 2 people being a duo and then the third person kind of being a weirdo odd man out. I hate 3 people. Every single TriCast just turns into no one knows when to talk. Like we did online. Oh, and online is the worst. We did Mango and Vish were in the studio and I was remote. And then there's that little that little split second of audio delay. Oh, it was tough. It's so tough because then, you know, or we've done this. I don't know, whatever. Listen, you can make it work. There have been some pretty fun 3-person casts in the past. The best TriCast of all time, bar none, the best TriCast of all time, and I stand by this, and I was talking about it this past weekend with Alex19 because he was one of the people. In my opinion, the best chemistry any 3 people have had on a desk was me, Alex19, and Armada for the first half of top 8. I think it was top 8 at one of those tournaments that was the Mango Homecoming, Mango something. Me, Alex19, Armada. And I think the reason it was so good, I think the reason it worked, was because you've got Armada, who's Armada, and you've got Alex19, who's Alex19, and then you've got me, who's kind of gluing them together, right? So you've got Armada, who's just the biggest braid guy, and he's funny, but in his own weird fucking Armada Swedish way. And then you've got Alex19, who's just fucking like, oh, Armada, you, Adam, how are you so big, like, oh my god, Armada, like, holy shit, I'm jacked, right? And then I'm kind of like just bouncing back and forth between them. And you can go back and watch it. I maintain, to me, that was the best track. And I think it's because all 3 of us were so different. All 3 of us are such different people. That's the only way I think it works, because then every one of those people is bringing something unique to the table. To me, at least as far as TriCast that I've been a part of, that's the one I was the most proud of. I think there's something to that. I think there's something about the fact that there were 3 very different personalities on the desk that made it good. That's how I felt about it. Yeah, Hatred is my brother. I love my brother. Ninja Boy, who's in the chat, asks how long would it take for AMSA to become Rank number 1 in the world. The thing is, the cool thing about it right now is that no one's running away with it. So all you really need to do is if you win like 3 super majors in a season, like think about last season, nobody won more than 2 majors. Zane won 2 majors. I think Cody won 2 majors, or maybe only Zane won 2 majors. So basically, if you win 3 majors, you probably get ranked 1. But winning 3 majors in a season is really hard. So that's the good news. There's no like Armada figure or whatever. There's no one who's so dominant right now that they're a shoo-in for rank 1, which means you got to outpace that guy. Everyone's kind of like, it feels like there's a big toss-up right now. So you just have to pull ahead of the toss-up. The chances are better right now than it could be if there was a situation where someone was extremely dominant, right? That's kind of how I feel. Levi asks, how much do you think the winner of a major is determined by bracket log? That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it affects results a lot. I mean, you see this a good amount. It really does depend on what the tournament is. You know, in some ways, Smash Summit is like almost the most legitimate tournament because I feel like at Smash Summit, you can never bracket luck your way. It feels like at Smash Summit, for whatever reason, you can never bracket luck your way to winning the tournament. It just can't happen. You have to play too many sets. You have to play everyone at a certain point, you know. Usually at Smash Summit, it's not the case. But yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing is if you stay in winners, in theory, you could do it just beating 2 of the other god level threats. I don't think this happens the majority of the time. I will add that for AMSA, I'm not even really sure who his demons are right now. I guess it's probably IBDW, and I would say Wizzy, except he beat Wizzy last time. Plup would be one, right? There's so many people that you're going to run into at Big House that's kind of the weird thing about there being like 8 people who can win the tournament is it's actually very unlikely that you fight more than 2 or 3 of them because they're going to take each other out from your perspective. It's unlikely that you fight more than a handful of them unless you go to losers. And if you go to losers, then tough shit, you know? That's kind of how it goes. And that's why staying in winners is so fucking important. I feel like, you know, this is when you see anytime someone bracket lucks their way into a good tourney result like that, it's because they stayed in winners. Someone asked, do you think Cody's going to pull off the Summit 3-peat? 3 in a row? I would say no. And the only reason I say no is because you're basically asking me, am I betting on Cody or am I betting on the field? If I'm just being a fucking practical Peter or a pragmatic Paul, I would not bet on anybody against the field right. I just think the field is too stacked. So no, from that perspective, I don't think we're getting a 3-peat. And that's, again, that's nothing against Cody. I think Cody's as likely to win it as anybody, if not more likely, but I don't think Cody has it over the fucking field. Not right now. The field's way too stacked. I would give Cody, I'll give Cody better odds than the rest of them. I'll say Cody has a 20% chance of winning the Summit, which is more odds than I'd giving. Maybe Cody is a 20%. Zane's got a 20%. J-Mook's got a 15%. We're already running out of percents. You see what I'm saying? No, I'm not. No, I do not think you can't even give 20% out. I think you guys kind of got my point. I have no idea what the is going to happen. Yeah, I think Cody's very likely to win it, but not more than 15%. This is a really interesting question. Because right now, like I said, I think we have more god level threats in the game than ever. Literally ever. And that's why majors right now are more fun to watch than they ever have been. Even the ones where people don't show up. Shine, a bunch of the top players didn't show up to Shine. They didn't go. But it didn't matter because Mango and J-Mook and Zane and H-Box were still there or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, the best part about Melee right now is that there are so many people who can win the tournament that 4 of them can skip the tournament and it still feels like a super duper stacked super major. So, you know, I would say, I don't know. I feel like it'll stay high unless someone really pulls ahead. But I don't know who that would be. I really don't. I don't know who the hell that would be. Because the interesting thing is because there's so many good players right now, the cool thing is they're kind of keeping each other in check because some of them are just naturally better against others of them. Some of them have their natural kind of, they have their natural kind of good and bad matchups to each other, and those kind of fluctuate. And so it's hard to rise above the rest because to a certain degree, rising above the rest entails not running into the ones that do really well against you. And so right now, it feels really hard for any one of them to rise above the others for that exact reason. But I don't know. It's funny. I almost wonder if this is a bit of an artifact of the fact that, you know, most people are still solo maining, you know? Maybe it would be easier for someone to pull ahead if they dual mained in that sense, because then maybe you can good match up your way into, I don't know. Maybe if Zane masters the Jigglypuff thing and starts resting everybody, maybe that's the ticket. But he's losing to Cody, and Cody would be Cody's a player he would go north for anyway, so I don't even know. You know what I'm saying?